The millionaire mocked her honesty, until her words exposed the lies behind his empire. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're bringing you an incredible story that will make you question everything you think you know about success, honesty, and the price of integrity. This is a tale that unfolds in the heart of Manhattan, where skyscrapers touch the clouds and fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye. Before we dive into this captivating story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. And please, tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Are you joining us from New York, California, Texas, or maybe somewhere across the globe? We love hearing from our incredible community. Now let's begin our story about Emma Rodriguez, a young woman whose simple honesty would shake the foundations of a billion-dollar empire. Chapter 1. The Encounter. The November rain pelted against the glass windows of Sterling Financial Tower, creating rivers that distorted the view of Manhattan's bustling streets 40 floors below. Emma Rodriguez clutched her worn leather portfolio tighter as she stepped out of the elevator, her sensible black heels clicking against the marble floor of the executive suite. At 26, Emma had worked her way up from a small accounting firm in Queens to become one of the most respected financial auditors in the city. Her reputation for meticulous attention to detail and unwavering honesty had earned her contracts with some of New York's most prestigious companies. Today, she was here to present her preliminary findings to Alexander Sterling, the 42-year-old billionaire who had built his empire from a single real estate investment 20 years ago. "Mr. Sterling will see you now," announced his assistant, a perfectly polished woman in her 30s whose smile never quite reached her eyes. Emma was led through a corridor lined with awards and photographs of Sterling shaking hands with politicians, celebrities, and business leaders. The office door opened to reveal a space that screamed wealth and power. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Central Park, while expensive artwork adorned the walls. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat Alexander Sterling himself, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored Italian suit with silver-touched hair that gave him a distinguished appearance. "Ms. Rodriguez," Sterling said, without looking up from his computer, his voice carrying the confident tone of someone accustomed to being the most important person in every room. "I trust you have good news about our quarterly review." Emma took a seat across from him, opening her portfolio with steady hands despite the nervous energy coursing through her. "Mr. Sterling, I've completed my analysis of your company's financial records for the past 6 months, and I need to discuss some concerns I've identified." Sterling finally looked up, his steel-gray eyes meeting hers with mild interest. "Concerns? I'm sure whatever small discrepancies you've found can be easily explained. My accounting team is the best money can buy." "I'm afraid it's not that simple," Emma replied, her voice calm but firm. She pulled out a series of documents, each one meticulously organized and annotated. "I've discovered several irregularities in your offshore account transfers, including approximately $12 million that appears to have been redirected from your affordable housing fund to private investments." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sterling's expression hardened as he leaned back in his chair, a cold smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Miss Rodriguez, do you know who you're talking to? I've built an empire worth $3 billion. I employ thousands of people. I've donated millions to charity. And you, a small-time auditor from Queens, think you can waltz in here and question my business practices?" Emma felt her cheeks burn, but she maintained her composure. "Mr. Sterling, with respect, my background doesn't change the facts. These documents show clear evidence of fund misallocation. The money designated for low-income housing projects in Brooklyn and the Bronx was diverted to high-yield investments in the Cayman Islands." Sterling laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Your honesty is charming, really. But let me explain something to you about the real world. Success isn't built on naive idealism. It's built on making smart decisions, taking calculated risks, and understanding that sometimes you have to bend the rules to achieve greatness." "Bend the rules." Emma's voice rose slightly. "Mr. Sterling, we're talking about money, meant to provide homes for families who can barely afford rent in this city. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent real people with real needs." "Real people," Sterling repeated mockingly. "You sound like a social worker, not a financial professional. Tell me, Miss Rodriguez, what's your net worth? What kind of car do you drive? Where do you live?" Emma's jaw tightened. "I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Astoria. I take the subway to work and I drive a 7-year-old Honda Civic, but none of that has anything to do with—" "It has everything to do with it," Sterling interrupted, standing up and walking to his window. "You're lecturing me about business from the perspective of someone who's never built anything, never taken real risks, never had to make the hard decisions that separate the successful from the mediocre. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Emma stared at the man before her, seeing not the successful businessman celebrated in magazines, but someone who had lost sight of the very principles that should guide any ethical enterprise. "Mr. Sterling," she said quietly, "I may not have billions in the bank, but I have something that money can't buy. Integrity. And based on what I've uncovered, that's something your empire is severely lacking." Sterling turned back to her, his expression shifting from amusement to something more dangerous. "Is that a threat, Miss Rodriguez?" "It's a professional obligation," Emma replied, gathering her documents. "I'm required by law to report these findings to the appropriate regulatory authorities. I wanted to give you the opportunity to explain these discrepancies first, but it's clear you're not interested in accountability. You have no idea what you're dealing with," Sterling said, his voice low and menacing. "I've destroyed people for far less than what you're suggesting. I have connections in every major law firm in this city, friends in the district attorney's office, and enough influence to make sure you never work in financial services again." Emma stood up, her portfolio clutched tightly in her hands. "Then I guess we'll see whether the truth is stronger than your influence, Mr. Sterling. Good day." As she walked toward the door, Sterling called out, "You'll regret this, Ms. Rodriguez. Mark my words, your honesty will be your downfall." Emma paused at the door, looking back at him one last time. "And your dishonesty will be yours." Chapter 2. The investigation deepens. The subway ride back to Queens felt longer than usual. Emma sat in the corner of the car, her mind racing as she replayed the confrontation with Sterling. The threatening tone in his voice had been unmistakable, but she couldn't let fear override her professional duty. She had worked too hard to build her reputation to compromise it now. Her phone buzzed with a text from her younger brother, Carlos. "How did the big meeting go? You're going to be rich and famous now, right?" Emma smiled sadly. If only he knew how complicated things had become. She typed back, "Still your same broke sister. We'll call you tonight." Back in her modest office in a converted warehouse in Long Island City, Emma spread the Sterling financial documents across her desk. The afternoon light filtered through dirty windows, casting long shadows across the papers that contained what could be the biggest financial scandal to hit New York in years. Her business partner, David Chen, knocked on her door. At 31, David was a brilliant forensic accountant who had left a lucrative position at a Big Four firm to start their independent practice with Emma 3 years ago. "How did Sterling take the news?" David asked, settling into the chair across from her desk. "About as well as you'd expect a billionaire to take, being told his empire is built on fraud," Emma replied, rubbing her temples. "So he threatened to destroy my career and made it clear he thinks I'm just a naive idealist who doesn't understand how the real world works." David frowned. "Emma, you know I support you completely, but Sterling isn't just any client. He has serious political connections. Are you sure you want to go down this road?" "David, look at these numbers," Emma said, pointing to her computer screen. "Over the past 2 years, Sterling has diverted nearly $40 million from various social programs into his private investment portfolio. That's money that was supposed to build affordable housing, fund job training programs, and support community development projects." "I see the numbers, and they're damning," David agreed. "But Emma, think about what you're up against. Sterling has teams of lawyers, powerful friends, and unlimited resources. What do we have? We have the truth," Emma said firmly. "And we have the legal obligation to report financial crimes when we discover them." David sighed. "You're right, of course, but I'm worried about what this means for our business. If Sterling follows through on his threats, then we'll deal with it," Emma interrupted. "David, my parents came to this country with nothing but hope and determination. They worked double shifts in factories so I could go to college. They taught me that integrity isn't negotiable, no matter the cost." That evening, Emma worked late into the night, cross-referencing bank records, investment statements, and public filings. The more she dug, the more complex Sterling's web of financial manipulation became. Shell companies in Delaware, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Luxembourg, and a maze of transactions designed to obscure the true destination of funds. Her phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. "Miss Rodriguez." The voice was unfamiliar. Nervous. I work for Sterling Financial. I heard about your meeting with Mr. Sterling today." Emma's pulse quickened. "Who is this?" "I can't give you my name, but I've been watching what's been happening at this company for months. There's more than what you've already found. Much more." "What do you mean?" "Meet me tomorrow at Bryant Park, by the fountain, at noon. Come alone. And Miss Rodriguez, be careful. Sterling doesn't make empty threats." The line went dead. Emma stared at her phone, her heart pounding. She had expected Sterling to be angry, but she hadn't anticipated that there might be others within his organization who were troubled by what they'd witnessed. The next morning dawned grey and cold, with the kind of November chill that cut through even the heaviest coat. Emma arrived at Bryant Park 15 minutes early, positioning herself near the fountain where she could see anyone approaching. The lunch crowd was beginning to gather, office workers grabbing food from nearby vendors and students from the nearby library taking a break from their studies. At exactly noon, a woman approached her, mid-30s, professionally dressed, with the kind of nervous energy that suggested she was constantly looking over her shoulder. "Miss Rodriguez?" the woman asked quietly. Emma nodded. "You're the one who called. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm a senior accountant at Sterling Financial. I've worked there for 8 years, and I've watched this company change from something I was proud to be part of into something that keeps me awake at night." "What do you mean?" Sarah looked around nervously before continuing. 3 years ago, Sterling started what he called aggressive expansion strategies. But what that really meant was finding creative ways to redirect funds from less profitable ventures, like the affordable housing projects, into high-yield investments that would boost his personal portfolio. "Do you have documentation of this?" "Some," Sarah said, pulling out a flash drive. "But I have to be careful. Sterling has a way of making problems disappear, and that includes people who become inconvenient." Emma took the flash drive, her mind racing. "Sarah, why are you doing this? Why risk your job, your career?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Because I grew up in one of the neighborhoods that was supposed to benefit from Sterling's affordable housing fund. My mother still lives there, in a building that's falling apart because the renovation money never came through. I became an accountant to help companies do good in the world, not to help rich men steal from the poor." "What's on this drive?" "Internal memos, email chains, and financial records that show Sterling's pattern of fund diversion goes back at least 3 years. But Miss Rodriguez, you need to understand, if Sterling finds out I gave you this information, I won't just lose my job. I could face criminal charges for corporate espionage." Emma felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "Sarah, I want you to know that I take this very seriously. Your courage in coming forward means everything. Just please be careful," Sarah said, standing to leave. "Sterling has eyes and ears everywhere, and he's not the kind of man who forgives those who cross him." As Sarah walked away, Emma clutched the flash drive tightly. She now had potential evidence that could expose Sterling's operations, but she also had a clearer picture of the dangerous game she was playing. This wasn't just about financial irregularities anymore. It was about a systematic pattern of fraud that had been going on for years. That afternoon, Emma and David reviewed the contents of Sarah's flash drive. The documents painted a picture of calculated deception that was far worse than Emma had initially suspected. "Oh my God," David whispered, staring at the screen. "Emma, this isn't just fund diversion. This is organized fraud on a massive scale." Emma nodded grimly. "And now we have a choice. We can report what we know to the authorities and hope they can protect us from Sterling's retaliation. Or we can walk away and pretend we never saw any of this. What do you want to do?" Emma looked out the window at the city skyline, where Sterling's tower rose like a monument to unchecked power and greed. "We're going to expose him. All of it." Chapter 3. The stakes rise. Emma's apartment felt smaller than usual as she paced back and forth, her laptop open on the kitchen table, displaying the damning evidence she and David had compiled. It was nearly midnight, but sleep felt impossible. The weight of what she was about to do pressed down on her like the November storm raging outside her window. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Mija, you sounded worried on the phone today. Is everything okay at work?" Emma stared at the message, unsure how to respond. How could she explain that she was about to take on one of the most powerful men in New York? That her dedication to honesty might cost her everything she'd worked for? She typed back, "Just a challenging case, Mummy. Nothing I can't handle. Love you." The lie felt bitter on her tongue, but what choice did she have? Her parents had sacrificed too much for her success to worry them now. The next morning, Emma arrived at the office to find David already there, his face grave as he hung up the phone. "That was the Regulatory Commission," he said. "They want to meet with us this afternoon to review our findings." "Good," Emma replied, though her stomach churned with nervousness. "The sooner we get this information to the authorities, the better." "Emma, there's something else. I got a call from 3 of our other clients this morning. They're terminating their contracts with us, effective immediately." Emma's heart sank. All three. No explanations, just formal letters citing changing business needs." David's expression was troubled. "Emma, I don't think this is a coincidence. Sterling's influence runs deeper than we realized." Before Emma could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number again. "Ms. Rodriguez." The voice was different this time. Older, more authoritative. "This is Attorney General Robert Mitchell. I believe you have some information that might be of interest to my office." Emma's pulse quickened. "Attorney General Mitchell, how did you get this number?" Word travels fast in legal circles when someone starts investigating Alexander Sterling. "I'd like to meet with you this afternoon, if possible. This is a matter of significant public interest." Yes, of course. I'm already scheduled to meet with the Regulatory Commission at 3 p.m. Perfect. I'll be there as well. Ms. Can Rodriguez, I want you to know that you're doing the right thing. Sterling's activities have been on our radar for some time, but we needed someone with your expertise to help us understand the full scope of his operations. After the call ended, Emma felt a mixture of relief and terror. Having the Attorney General's support was encouraging, but it also meant that the stakes were higher than she'd imagined. The Regulatory Commission offices were located in a nondescript building in Lower Manhattan, a stark contrast to Sterling's opulent tower. Emma and David were led to a conference room where 5 officials waited, including Attorney General Mitchell, a distinguished woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an air of quiet authority. "Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Chen," Mitchell began, "thank you for coming forward with this information. Based on your preliminary report, we believe Sterling Financial may be involved in one of the largest financial fraud schemes this city has seen in decades." Emma opened her laptop and began her presentation, walking through the evidence methodically. Each document, each transaction, each diverted fund painted a picture of systematic deception that had robbed vulnerable communities of millions of dollars. The Affordable Housing Fund alone shows a diversion of over $25 million, Emma explained, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "But this is just one program. Our analysis suggests similar patterns across at least 6 other social development initiatives." "What's your estimate of the total amount involved?" asked one of the commissioners. "Based on our current findings, we believe Sterling has diverted approximately $60 million over the past 3 years, David replied. "But this investigation is ongoing, and we suspect the actual amount may be significantly higher." Attorney General Mitchell leaned forward. "Ms. Rodriguez, I have to ask, are you prepared for what comes next? Sterling has powerful friends and unlimited resources. This won't be easy." Emma thought of Sarah Mitchell, risking everything to expose the truth. She thought of her parents, who had taught her that integrity wasn't negotiable. She thought of the families in Brooklyn and the Bronx, who were still waiting for the affordable housing that Sterling had stolen from them. "I'm prepared," she said firmly. "This isn't just about following the law, it's about justice." "Then we'll need you to go undercover," Mitchell said. "We want to set up a meeting with Sterling, record his responses to your accusations, and see if we can get him to incriminate himself further." Emma's blood ran cold. "You want me to wear a wire?" "We know it's dangerous," Mitchell acknowledged, "but Sterling's lawyers are among the best in the country. We need ironclad evidence to make charges stick. Your testimony alone might not be enough." David grabbed Emma's arm. "Emma, you don't have to do this. We've already provided enough evidence for them to launch their own investigation." "But will it be enough to convict him?" Emma asked. "Will it be enough to get that money back to the communities he stole from?" Mitchell shook her head. "Probably not. Sterling's too smart to leave obvious trails. We need him to confess, to get angry enough to reveal more than he intends." Emma closed her eyes, thinking of the threatening tone in Sterling's voice during their first meeting. Going back to confront him, this time with recording equipment, would be incredibly dangerous. "If I do this," she said slowly, "what kind of protection can you offer me?" "We'll have agents positioned throughout the building," Mitchell replied. "And we'll be monitoring the conversation in real time. If things go wrong, we can have people in that office within minutes." "Minutes might not be enough," David said grimly. Emma looked at her business partner, her friend, the man who had taken a risk to start their company with her. "David, I have to do this. If I don't, Sterling will continue destroying lives while hiding behind his wealth and influence." "Then I'm going with you," David said. "No," Emma replied immediately. "This is my fight. I won't put you at risk too." That evening, Emma sat in her apartment, staring at the recording device the FBI had given her. It was smaller than she'd expected, designed to be hidden beneath her clothing, where it would be nearly impossible to detect. Her phone rang. It was her brother Carlos. "Emma, I just saw the news. There's a story about some big investigation into Sterling Financial. Isn't that the company you were auditing?" Emma's heart stopped. "What story?" "It's all over the financial news sites. They're saying there might be a major fraud investigation. Are you involved in this?" Emma realized that word of their investigation had leaked, which meant Sterling probably knew that she hadn't backed down, that she was actively working with law enforcement. "Carlos, I can't talk about this right now, but I need you to do me a favor. Stay away from my apartment for the next few days. Go stay with Mom and Dad." "Emma, you're scaring me. What's going on? Just trust me, okay? I'll explain everything soon. After hanging up, Emma double-checked her locks and closed her blinds. If Sterling knew about the investigation, she was no longer just a whistleblower. She was a target. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Rodriguez, we need to talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office. Come alone, ACC. Emma stared at the message, her hands shaking. Sterling was calling her back to his office, just as the FBI had hoped. But now she knew he was aware of the investigation, which made the meeting exponentially more dangerous. She typed back, I'll be there. Tomorrow, she would walk back into Sterling's tower, wearing a wire, carrying the hopes of everyone he had stolen from, and knowing that one mistake could cost her everything. Chapter 4. The Confrontation. The morning of the meeting dawned crisp and clear, with the kind of bright November sunshine that made Manhattan's skyscrapers gleam like towers of glass and steel. Emma stood in front of her bedroom mirror, the tiny recording device taped securely beneath her blouse, invisible but feeling as heavy as a stone against her chest. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from reporters who had somehow gotten her number. The story of the Sterling investigation had exploded across the financial news overnight, and suddenly, everyone wanted to talk to the small-time auditor who had dared to challenge a billionaire. Agent Sarah Torres from the FBI sat in Emma's living room, running through the final details of the operation. Torres was a veteran investigator in her 40s, with the kind of calm competence that came from years of dangerous undercover work. Remember, Torres said, your job is to get him talking. The recording device will pick up everything, but we need Sterling to make statements that clearly indicate his knowledge of the fraud. Don't push too hard. Let his ego do the work. Emma nodded, her mouth dry. What if he suspects I'm wearing a wire? Sterling's arrogant, Torres replied. He thinks he's untouchable. In his mind, you're just a small-time accountant who got lucky. Use that to your advantage. And if things go wrong, we'll have agents in the building and vehicles positioned outside. If you feel threatened, just say the phrase, I think we should involve legal counsel. That's our signal to move in immediately. Emma took a deep breath, looking out her window at the city where she'd built her life and career. In a few hours, everything would change, one way or another. The subway ride to Manhattan felt surreal. Emma sat among the morning commuters, office workers, students, tourists, all going about their normal lives while she prepared to confront one of the most powerful men in the city. She caught her reflection in the train window, a young woman in a conservative business suit, looking far calmer than she felt. Sterling Financial Tower loomed before her, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun like a mirror. Emma had been here just a week ago, but it felt like a lifetime. Then, she had been a professional doing her job. Now she was essentially a federal agent, walking into enemy territory. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt endless. Emma's heart pounded as she watched the numbers climb, each floor bringing her closer to what could be the most dangerous conversation of her life. Sterling's assistant was the same perfectly polished woman as before, but her smile was noticeably cooler. Mr. Sterling is waiting for you, she said, her tone suggesting that Emma was anything but welcome. The office looked exactly the same, but the atmosphere was completely different. Sterling stood with his back to the door, looking out at the city, his posture rigid with controlled anger. Miss Rodriguez, he said without turning around, I have to admit, I underestimated you. Emma remained standing near the door, her senses heightened. Mr. Sterling, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Did I have a choice? Sterling turned to face her, and Emma was struck by the change in his appearance. The confident businessman from their first meeting had been replaced by someone whose composure was clearly strained. The FBI raided my offices at 6 a.m. this morning. They seized computers, files, everything. My lawyers tell me you've been quite busy since our last conversation. I've been doing my job, Emma replied, her voice steady. Following the evidence wherever it leads, Sterling walked to his desk, his movements deliberate and controlled. Your job? Yes, let's talk about that. Do you know what your little investigation has cost me? 3 board members have resigned. My stock price has dropped 15%. Major clients are canceling contracts. I'm sorry about the impact on your business, Emma said, but that doesn't change what I found in your financial records. What you found, Sterling repeated, laughing bitterly. You found what you wanted to find. Numbers that could be interpreted in ways that support your preconceived notions about wealthy businessmen. Emma felt a flash of anger. Mr. Sterling, I have documentation of systematic fund diversion spanning 3 years. This isn't about interpretation. It's about facts. Facts? Sterling's voice rose. The fact is that I've created thousands of jobs, generated billions in economic activity, and donated more money to charity than you'll earn in your entire lifetime. But none of that matters to you, does it? You'd rather destroy a man's life's work based on your naive understanding of complex financial structures. Complex financial structures. Emma stepped closer to his desk. Is that what you call stealing money from affordable housing programs? From job training initiatives? From community development projects? I call it business, Sterling snapped. Money has to be invested wisely to generate returns. Those social programs were hemorrhaging cash with nothing to show for it. I redirected those funds into profitable ventures that would eventually generate more money for everyone involved. Emma's pulse quickened. This was exactly the kind of admission the FBI needed. So you're admitting that you deliberately moved money from designated social programs into your private investment portfolio? Sterling caught himself, his expression shifting. I'm admitting that I made strategic business decisions that maximized returns for my investors. Everything I did was within the bounds of legal financial management. Legal financial management doesn't involve creating shell companies to hide fund transfers, Emma pressed. It doesn't involve offshore accounts designed to obscure the true destination of money that was earmarked for specific community programs. You're out of your depth, Ms. Rodriguez, Sterling said, his voice dangerously quiet. You think you understand the complexities of high-level finance, but you're like a child playing with fire. Then explain it to me, Emma challenged. Help me understand how taking $25 million from affordable housing and moving it to the Cayman Islands serves any legitimate business purpose. Sterling's composure finally cracked. Because affordable housing is a money pit. Because those programs are designed by bleeding hearts who don't understand the first thing about economic reality. Because sometimes you have to make hard choices to ensure the survival and growth of an empire. Emma felt a surge of triumph. He was confirming everything, admitting to the fund diversions, justifying them as business decisions. The recording device was capturing every word. So you acknowledge that you diverted funds from social programs? She asked. Can I acknowledge that I made the decisions necessary to protect my business and my investors? Sterling replied. Decisions that people like you, with your small-minded morality, could never understand. Small-minded morality? Emma's voice rose. Mr. Sterling, that small-minded morality is what prevents people from stealing from the poor to enrich themselves. It's what separates legitimate business from organized crime. Sterling's face flushed red. Well, how dare you? I've built something magnificent, something that will last long after small-time auditors like you are forgotten. I've created wealth, jobs, opportunities. What have you ever built? What have you ever created? I've created a reputation for honesty, Emma replied. I've built a business based on integrity. And right now, I'm helping to create justice for all the people you've stolen from. Justice? Sterling laughed harshly. You want to talk about justice? Let me tell you about justice. Justice is what happens when someone like you tries to destroy someone like me. Justice is what happens when you bite off more than you can chew. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Are you threatening me, Mr. Sterling? I'm educating you, Sterling said, moving around his desk toward her. You've made a very dangerous enemy, Miss Rodriguez, and I always collect on my debts. Emma backed toward the door, her hand instinctively moving toward her purse. I think we should involve legal counsel, she said clearly. Sterling stopped, a cold smile spreading across his face. Legal counsel? How interesting. That's exactly what someone wearing a wire would say. Emma's blood turned to ice. He knew. Somehow, he knew about the recording device. So I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice betrayed her fear. Of course you don't, Sterling said, reaching into his desk drawer. Just like you don't know that I have friends in the FBI who warned me about your little undercover operation. Emma realized with horror that she was completely exposed. Sterling had known about the wire all along. He had been playing with her, letting her think she was in control while he planned his next move. So you see, Mrs. Rodriguez, Sterling continued, your honesty really is your weakness. You're so predictable, so naive. Did you really think you could outmaneuver me in my own building? Emma's mind raced. She had to get out of the office, had to hope that Agent Torres and her team would realize something was wrong. But Sterling was between her and the door, and she could see security cameras in every corner of the room. The FBI is listening, she said desperately. They know I'm here. Oh, they know you're here, Sterling agreed. But they also know that you came here voluntarily, that you're working with them to entrap me. What they don't know is that you're about to have a very unfortunate accident. Emma's phone buzzed in her purse, a text message. She glanced at it quickly. Torres, get out now. We're coming up. Sterling noticed her looking at her phone. Ah, your handlers are getting nervous. Too bad they're too late. Suddenly, the office door burst open. Agent Torres and 3 other FBI agents rushed in, weapons drawn. FBI! Nobody move! Torres shouted. Sterling raised his hands, that cold smile still on his face. Gentlemen, ladies, What an unexpected pleasure. I was just having a friendly conversation with Miss Rodriguez here about her auditing work. Step away from her, Sterling, Torres ordered. Of course, Sterling said, moving back toward his desk. Though I should mention that this entire conversation has been recorded by my own security system. I'm sure my lawyers will find it very interesting evidence of FBI entrapment. Emma realized that Sterling had been playing a game within a game, recording her just as she was recording him. But she also realized that his arrogance had been his downfall. He had confessed to the fun diversions, admitted to the criminal activity, all while trying to intimidate her. Alexander Sterling, Torres said, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. As the agents cuffed Sterling, he looked directly at Emma. This isn't over, Miss Aunt Rodriguez. Men like me don't go down easily. Emma watched as they led him away, her legs shaking with adrenaline and relief. She had done it. She had exposed the truth about Sterling's empire, captured his confession, and survived to tell the story. But as she looked out at the city below, Emma knew that Sterling was right about one thing. This was far from over. Chapter 5. The Reckoning. 6 months later, Emma stood in the same spot where she had first confronted Alexander Sterling, but the office was now empty and stripped of its former grandeur. The expensive artwork had been seized as assets, the mahogany desk removed as evidence, and the sweeping views of Central Park now seemed more like a mockery than a symbol of success. The Sterling Financial Tower had been sold to pay restitution to the victims of the fraud scheme. Emma was here one last time, accompanying Attorney General Mitchell on a final walkthrough before the building was officially turned over to its new owners. $68 million, Mitchell said, reading from a folder. That's the final tally of what Sterling diverted from social programs over a 4-year period. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison and ordered full restitution to the affected communities. Emma nodded, still processing the magnitude of what they had uncovered. What about the affordable housing projects? Will they be able to move forward now? Construction begins next month, Mitchell replied. 300 units in Brooklyn and the Bronx, exactly as originally planned. Sterling's conviction sent a clear message to other executives who might be tempted to treat social program funds as their personal piggy banks. As they walked through the empty corridors, Emma reflected on how much her life had changed since that first meeting with Sterling. The death threats had stopped after his conviction, but the media attention had transformed her from an unknown auditor into a symbol of corporate accountability. Have you thought about our offer? Mitchell asked. The Attorney General's office could use someone with your expertise in financial crimes. Emma smiled. I'm honored, but David and I have more than enough work to keep us busy. Apparently, exposing one billionaire's fraud makes other companies want to make sure their books are clean. Their business had indeed flourished. The publicity from the Sterling case had brought them dozens of new clients, all eager to work with the auditing firm that had taken down a corrupt empire. But more importantly, Emma had discovered that her work had real impact. Every financial irregularity she uncovered, every case of fraud she exposed, meant real money returning to real people who needed it. As they reached the elevator, Emma's phone rang. It was Sarah Mitchell, the brave accountant who had first provided her with the crucial evidence against Sterling. Emma, I wanted you to know, I just got confirmation that the community center in my neighborhood is finally getting its funding. They're breaking ground next week. Emma smiled. That's wonderful news, Sarah. How are you doing? Better than I expected. The Witness Protection Program helped me relocate to Portland, and I've got a great job with a non-profit that monitors corporate accountability. Turns out there's a lot of demand for accountants who aren't afraid to tell the truth. After hanging up, Emma felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Sarah's courage had been the catalyst that made everything possible. Without her willingness to risk everything for the truth, Sterling might still be stealing from vulnerable communities. You know, Mitchell said as they waited for the elevator, Sterling's lawyers filed an appeal last month. They're claiming prosecutorial misconduct, arguing that the FBI entrapped their client. Emma's stomach tightened. Do they have a case? No chance, Mitchell replied confidently. Sterling's confession was clear and voluntary. He incriminated himself because his arrogance convinced him he was untouchable. The appeals court will uphold the conviction. The elevator arrived, and as they descended from the 40th floor, Emma watched the numbers count down and thought about how this building had once symbolized unchecked power and corruption. Now it would become something else. Perhaps offices for non-profit organizations, or affordable housing advocates, or other groups dedicated to serving the public good. There's something else I wanted to tell you, Mitchell said as they reached the lobby. We've received information about 2 other major corporations that may be involved in similar fraud schemes, companies that learned from Sterling's mistakes and developed even more sophisticated methods of hiding their activities. Emma looked at her with interest. What kind of information? The kind that would require the expertise of a very skilled forensic auditor, someone with a proven track record of uncovering complex financial crimes. Emma laughed. You're not giving up on recruiting me, are you, Emma? You have a gift for this work. And more importantly, you have the courage to follow the evidence wherever it leads, regardless of how powerful the people involved might be. As they stepped out onto the busy Manhattan street, Emma felt the energy of the city surrounding her. Thousands of people hurried past, each with their own stories, their own struggles, their own dreams. Many of them would never know that a small-time auditor from Queens had fought to protect their interests against a billionaire who saw them as nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. Client meeting went great. They want us to audit their entire charitable foundation. Looks like we're going to need to hire more staff. Emma typed back, good problem to have. See you back at the office. So, Mitchell asked, what do you say? Ready to take on the next corporate empire that thinks it's above the law? Emma looked up at the Sterling Financial Tower one last time, then back at the Attorney General. Send me the files, but David and I work independently. We follow our own investigation protocols, and we report directly to you, not through anyone else. Deal, Mitchell said, extending her hand. Welcome to the fight, Emma. As Emma walked toward the subway station, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she had been a small business owner, struggling to build her reputation. Now she was part of a network of professionals dedicated to holding powerful people accountable for their actions. Her phone rang again. This time it was her mother. Mija, I saw the news about that man Sterling going to prison. Are you the Emma Rodriguez they keep talking about? Emma smiled. Yes, Mummy, that's me. I'm so proud of you, mi amor. Your father and I always knew you would do great things, but we never imagined you would take down a billionaire. I didn't take him down, Mummy. He took himself down. I just helped people see the truth. That's what makes me most proud, her mother said. You could have walked away, could have stayed quiet and safe, but you chose to stand up for what's right, even when it was dangerous. Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes. You and Papi taught me that integrity isn't negotiable. That lesson saved me when I was tempted to compromise, and it will save you again whenever you face that choice. Because this won't be the last time powerful people try to silence you. Her mother was right. Emma knew that there would be other Sterlings, other corrupt executives who believed their wealth made them untouchable. But she also knew that there would be other Sarah Mitchells, other brave whistleblowers willing to risk everything for the truth. As the subway train carried her back to Queens, Emma opened her laptop and began reading the files that Attorney General Mitchell had sent her. The next case involved a pharmaceutical company that had allegedly diverted funds from medical research grants into executive bonuses and private investments. Emma studied the preliminary evidence, already seeing patterns that reminded her of Sterling's methods. Shell companies, offshore accounts, and complex financial structures designed to obscure the true destination of funds. But this time, she wasn't going in blind. She had experience, connections, and most importantly, the knowledge that truth could triumph over power when good people refused to stay silent. Her phone displayed a notification from the news app. Former Sterling Financial CEO Alexander Sterling denied parole in first hearing. Judge cites lack of remorse and continued threat to public welfare. Emma smiled grimly. Sterling was exactly where he belonged, and his empire had been dismantled piece by piece. The affordable housing projects were under construction, the community centers were being funded, and the job training programs were back on track. Real families were getting real help because someone had been willing to speak truth to power. The train pulled into her station in Queens, and Emma gathered her things. Tomorrow she would begin a new investigation, face new challenges, and probably encounter new threats from powerful people who believed money could buy them immunity from consequences. But tonight, she would go home to her small apartment, call her parents, and remind herself that integrity wasn't just about following rules or doing the right thing when it was easy. It was about standing firm when everything around you was trying to make you compromise, when the stakes were highest and the pressure was greatest. As she climbed the stairs from the subway platform, Emma thought about all the other auditors, accountants, whistleblowers, and ordinary citizens who chose courage over comfort every day. People like Sarah Mitchell, who risked everything to expose corruption. People like Attorney General Mitchell, who used her position to fight for justice rather than political advancement. People like David, who stood by his partner even when their business was threatened. Emma's phone buzzed with one final message of the day, this one from Carlos. Saw you on the news again, Hermana. Still can't believe my sister brought down a billionaire. Mom's making your favorite dinner this weekend to celebrate. Emma typed back, tell her I'll be there. And Carlos, I didn't bring down a billionaire. I just helped everyone see that he had already brought himself down. The truth has a way of doing that. She looked up at the lights of Manhattan glowing in the distance, where somewhere in a federal prison, Alexander Sterling was learning that all the money in the world couldn't buy back the respect and freedom he had lost through his own choices. Emma Rodriguez, the small-time auditor from Queens who had dared to challenge an empire, walked home through the familiar streets of her neighborhood, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. Because she had learned the most important lesson of all: when you stand on the side of truth, you're never really standing alone. The story of the millionaire who mocked her honesty had ended exactly as it should have, with justice served, victims compensated, and the reminder that in America, no one is truly above the law when brave people refuse to be silenced. As Emma reached her apartment building, she paused to look back toward Manhattan one more time. Somewhere out there, other corrupt executives were probably planning their next schemes, convinced that their wealth and connections made them untouchable. They were about to learn how wrong they were.